for the why climb the corporate ladder when hacking the elevator is more fun. You can thank Colin for that.
Just the name of it.
Whenever I have to name a session, I call Colin. I'm like, Colin, I need a good name for this. He's there for you. Anyway, the idea is we're all InfoSec people. We all want to do what's best for us. We all want to grow. Sometimes that growth is in comfort of we want more pay. Sometimes we want more responsibilities. Sometimes we want something that fits our lifestyle better, but we always want to grow and change and get better in one way or another. And so this I chose an interesting selection of people throughout their careers and throughout their lifestyle and what they're doing within InfoSec to answer your questions. The idea is to have everyone come up. We got a house mic, so we'll have everyone come up and ask questions here about how to better your career. Your question can be, how do I make my resume better? Your question can be, how do I get the experience needed? Or your question can be, I don't know, whatever. I don't care. Really quick, we're going to get started. We're going to have everyone up on the panel introduce themselves. And I'll go first. I said Colin was going first, but I lied because that's how I roll. I'm Matt Lorimer. Zodiac. I run the communities downstairs. So on the first floor, everything except the contests and events. Been doing SAINTCON stuff for about 7 or 8 years. And currently work as a solutions engineer for a VAR here in Salt Lake area. Anyway, yeah, that's me. Colin.
Hi, I'm Colin Jackson. I go by Didymus. I run the lockpick community, and so Matt Lorimer runs me. And I've been doing that for about 3 years now, 3 or 4 years here at SAINTCON. I'm a security engineer at Pluralsight, and yeah, favorite color is blue.
You told me it was green. You lied. I'm Sherrie Cowley. I am the Director of Security Operations and Engineering for 3M. I was a CISO for Swire Coca-Cola. It's just a bottler of Coca-Cola. I've done a lot of security stuff. I was an engineer back in the day before that. And I also do women in cybersecurity. So I know, trying to encourage. I know, well, yeah, and in fact, I'm just about out of stickers and badges, but if anyone in here didn't get one, try and find me right afterwards, and I'll give away some of our last badges and stickers, because they're really cool. And if you're really bored, there's a cryptography challenge on the back of the badge that's really, really tiny, and if you complete it, because no one has yet, you can win a prize, and anyway, come find me if you do.
That sounds great. I did see that picture posted in the Discord channel, someone trying to figure that out. So really interesting. I'm Seth Johnson, SJ. I've been helping out with SAINTCON, it seems like forever, since 2013 at least. For those of you who registered for the conference or got a badge, all the systems that tied that together, I probably wrote them. I am a security advisor for AWS, and what else? I'm really interested in helping people with their careers.
I am Seth Manesse, not to be confused with SJ. I go by Skettrick. I graduated in December from Utah State in computer science, and I currently work as a security engineer for Lucid Software. I do a lot of AppSec stuff. This is my second year doing anything with SAINTCON, really. I used to be under Didymus at the lockpick booth a couple years ago because Matt was my boss at the time and he got me involved as a volunteer, so it's his fault. Yeah, that's about it.
Put that on me.
My name is Mark Milne. I go by Mark. I guess I got to get with the times. I'm just not that interesting. I'm the CISO at New Skin across the street. Different careers, if you want to point questions, from professional services in Big Four to taking companies public to large financial services to now at New Skin. Maybe interesting fact, I live in St. George, so if we want to talk about where lifestyle and career meets and how to make that happen, maybe some breadcrumbs across that background we can chat about.
And Mark also helped organize Women in Cybersecurity. It's kind of funny because Mark called me up and said, "Hey Sherrie, do you want to help create this organization for women in cybersecurity?" And then he calls all the other female executives we have on our board, and so it's just I don't know, kind of a little funny twist there that Mark's the one that pulled that together.
Got to
so
start
thank you, Mark.
somewhere. So yeah, also involved in Women in Cybersecurity, and just work with Sherrie and Jamie from Progressive Leasing, and Christina at Health Equity, and Shalini Kesser, who runs the Masters of Cybersecurity for SUU. So good group. Stop by, chat with us.
Since I don't see anybody lining up for questions, if you guys have a question, just walk up to this mic right here. We got a house mic. If you guys are getting ready, I'm going to ask a question just to the panel really quick. I just recently made a career change, and I know that several of you have bounced between a few different jobs and changed careers a few times. How did you identify and decide it was time to make a move and take the next step in your career, to make a change?
They laid off the security team,
Oh, jeez.
but I got a job shortly thereafter. That was one sign. That was an obvious sign.
That's really bad.
Good sign. If you don't have a job, you should get one. Words to live by.
And just throwing this out there, I'm hiring like 7 people at a Fortune 100 company, and I'm really fun to work with. So talk to me.
I think in the opportunity to change careers, one, you're going to know as soon as you're bored and not enjoying or having fun anymore, or it's interesting. And that may be a good indicator that it's time to change. And then, I had some advice early on. It's actually probably good to replant yourself every 5 to 7 years. And that may not necessarily mean changing the company, but disrupt what you're comfortable with, put yourself in a different seat, do something else. If you're working in the SOC, go over and see if you can build some skill on the AppSec team or vice versa. So
I'm going to echo what Mark said, and I think you nailed it. The passion is the word I would describe. If you lose your passion, it's time to replant yourself, whether that's within the org or at a new one. I stayed in an organization for 17 years. I loved the org. It was awesome. They were good to me. Fantastic place to work. But there came a point in time where I just didn't have the passion anymore, and it was time to go. And it was a good sign for me. But anyone else, or should we go to?
I would just add to that I think as you're looking for a company to work for, ask a lot of questions about the culture. Make sure you understand what that's like, because I think all of us have kind of worked in an environment where it was a little toxic or just uncomfortable, and you didn't realize that coming in, and no one wants to be there. You want to work in an environment where the culture is great and people are being lifted up and their strengths are ignited. So look for that as you're looking for a business to go into, because obviously, that's a big reason why I think people do leave the companies they're currently in, besides being laid off.
Don't get laid off.
Okay, cool. We'll start with a question here.
Hi there. So my question is, right now I'm an analyst at a third-party SOC. My goal is to get into incident response, but I'm concerned that because I'm suggesting mitigations and not actually applying them myself because it's third-party, that's going to make it much more difficult to get into that role. I was wondering if you had any experience or advice for that.
So I'll tell you what I think. I think that there certainly are some challenges with that, and as a person, I think some of us have done a lot of interviewing over the years. Finding someone who has experience in something is usually seen as something good, but I think Sherrie actually in her talk yesterday talked about how important it is to find people who are curious about things and want to learn, and so demonstrating that would be really important. And I would say there are also a lot of open source opportunities for you to contribute that might show both of those things simultaneously. So those are 2 suggestions that I would have.
I can teach you how to do whatever task I need. I can't teach you how to care about whatever task I need. So find ways, whether that's, I really wanted to learn how to do incident response, so I built a lab in my basement on Raspberry Pis, and I downloaded PCAPs from the internet and figured out, whatever you're doing for threat hunting, incident response, whatever, show the passion, show the curiosity. But that's...
I was just going to echo exactly that.
He's a good one to answer. He did.
If you don't have experience in the field, you need to demonstrate passion for it, and so you need some kind of side something or other that is evidence that you like doing the thing. For me, that was my OSCP. I was a developer, but didn't have a lot of like specific security background. But going for an OSCP really demonstrates that I'm interested and invested in security.
If you don't know, that's no small feat. Like him, I was his boss when he got it, and I was thinking about getting it, and I felt bad that here's this kid that just, I'm going to get it, and 3 months later, I'm done. And it was pretty impressive to see. And from an employer standpoint, I'm like, hire that kid. He's going places.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, I mean, take advantage of things like SAINTCON. Because when I look at like my education and my experience, honestly, I think I learned more in doing like ethical hacking challenges at SANS and in environments kind of like this, doing the cryptography challenges even, right? Teaches you a lot because it does a lot, it involves a lot of analytical thinking and breaking stuff down. So get involved in those kind of things because, a lot of them are free and they're around you. And then you have this community of people who can constantly teach you and help you.
Does that answer your question?
I have one more thing. Get a mentor. And we'll probably say that 1,000 times or maybe I will, I don't know, but get a mentor. Find someone who has the job that you want and talk to them a lot.
And if you don't have a mentor, turn to the person next to you and say, hi, I'm Matt. I don't know you. What's your name? And it turns out that one of them very well might end up being your mentor.
Hello, panel. First-time caller, long-time listener. Do you have advice? If you look at Twitter and you watch InfoSec Twitter, it seems to be a lot of burnout in the community. Do you have advice for diminishing the amount of burnout as we go through our careers?
Are you saying for you personally or for your organization or both?
At industry at large.
So I think a lot of burnout is actually highly tied to mental health, right? And understanding what you're involved in. I think a great lesson in that was actually with the CISO for AWS, Steve Schmidt. Yeah, he was a fireside chat. He volunteers part-time as a EMT first responder. And he said, we get an incident, and Andy Jassie's like, how are you not losing your mind right now? Like, this is going on. And he said, I had someone dying in my arms yesterday when I was out responding as part of this EMT. So your mental state and health and where you're at plays a big part to kind of burn out. And, cybersecurity is a huge domain, right? Building a mental muscle that you can control what you can control is very important. Secondly is setting expectations with those that you're accountable to, whether that's in your personal social circles or in your employer. And I would say that burnout with your employer is particularly important because if you set risk tolerance, expectations, here's what we're building up to or the resources we need to do that, you can help mitigate some of that burnout. And that's where I'd go.
So for those of you who may not read a lot of the journalistic publications recently, 2021 has been dubbed the Great Resignation because of how many people feel like that. And it's not just in InfoSec, it's across the country and across the world. And I think Mark is absolutely right. It's tied very much to mental health. I would suggest that you find ways to talk to other people and get some of your thoughts and feelings out. Sometimes that's really helpful. Mental health is a really big deal. Consider getting professional help. And I don't mean that you're in a situation where it's horrible or you're crazy or anything. Those are all weird, like historical things that we think about for that. But it's just health. Find a way to take care of yourself. And I would also say another really important factor that I've found in my career is being able to deal with stress. Stress is the thing that drags us down when you're feeling burned out. And if you have no avenue and no hope for finding an avenue for solving that, you're going to burn out. There's no way you can not. So I would suggest you find a way to handle that, disconnect from that, reconnect, or get a solution. Once again, get a mentor. Find someone in your company or in your organization who cares about the things that are really grating on you, and come together with a plan to maybe not solve it, but take the next step.
I would say with the mental health thing, if you see signs, it's time to talk. We know it's not bad. You know it's not bad. But if you wait until it is bad, then it's a lot. I have family members that have had mental health problems, and they waited until it was bad. And when it was bad, they were in a place where they couldn't get the help because they were so destabilized that they couldn't do it without intervention. If you're seeing signs, please talk to someone, whether it's a friend or a professional, whatever you need. Do it early. Don't wait until it's too bad.
So I don't have a lot of experience in the area. I'm very new to my career. But I do have a couple of thoughts that I think are relevant. I think finding things outside of a screen to do can be very helpful to unplug. I tried recently doing bug bounty on the side just to see if I could earn some extra cash, and I found it affected my will to work on a day-to-day. I just got tired of spending a couple of hours doing more work at night, even though I dubbed it as fun, and that just didn't work for me. Another thing is, I think evaluating priorities on a regular basis is important. What are priorities in your life? Respecting career, respecting family, social, extracurricular obligations, and it's helpful to balance those and see where those are in your life at the moment. And then the last thing I'd say is to learn how to say no. That's a skill, and I'm working on it, obviously, because I'm here. But if you can look at those priorities, and if there is an opportunity that comes that does not fall in line with those priorities, then it can be a good opportunity to say no.
Thank you. No one else is behind me, so I'm going to ask another question if that's okay. So in Utah, in this industry, there are not many CISOs that have a seat at the table with the rest of the chief executives. Should that change, and how do we as an industry, if it should, how do we get a seat at the table?
Yes. It needs to change, right? If we're going to promote and say, information security risk is business risk, and how do those tie together, that should have that seat at the table. I think, even in, I'll say, some companies, you say, well, there's even tiers at the table. There's the really big kids table, and that's in my instance, that's the CEO, the CFO, and the general counsel. Then there's the teenagers table, and that has the CTO, the SVP for supply chain, and some other pieces that. And getting mixed up in that then comes a side question of where should the CISO report? My personal, and I'll tangent back just to address that really quick, is report to the person that cares about it. And everybody gets all bent out of shape. Oh my gosh, I report to the CIO. My life's the worst. Is the CIO supportive? Is he giving you air cover? Are you having good discussions? That seems pretty good. Right? Is it the general counsel that cares the most? Then that's probably where you should report. No, I've got to report to the CEO. The guy that has 15 direct reports, you're going to get 5 minutes with him twice a year, right? So so getting to that seat to the table is important. I would implore that the security leader that has the top responsibility, the table you've got to get to, is you need to be able to report to the board on a periodic basis. So as much as it's important, everybody wants to be in the grind, trust me, I go to meetings, it's it's all important, caveat. Let's talk about some sales plans for the next 3 hours. Is this the table I wanted to be at? I'm not sure. But being able to have a reporting to the board and talk about board level risk, and it is a significant pressure valve to release other blockers that you may have. So when the board says, what do you need? Also a bit of coaching. Don't say more money, because then the CFO is going to take you out back. Talk to them about tone at the top. Say, hey, next time you see the CEO, ask him when the last time is he met with the CISO or how often he meets with the CISO, right? Talk about culture of security and, you know, meet with the board. So we should have security as a role elevated. And then if I were to just dogpile way on top of all of this, would be the seat at the table as more boards need a security person in the board. And that's shifting, just even get a technology leader on boards, let alone a security leader. So my prediction is you're gonna start hearing more of that. Even not even getting the CISO at the table, but oh my gosh, can we get some security competency in the board? And I know it's been whispered to pass a bill. I wish they would. So.
I love listening to Mark talk because he always has very insightful comments to make, and this one definitely just hits it beautifully. I would agree as well. So I work for a Fortune 100 company, right? We're massive, and you know, spending time with Mike Roman, the CEO, is rare and and not something that you know that our group or many groups have an opportunity to do. But I think that sponsorship is important. But I feel that equal to that, though, and maybe even more so, is also having a partnership with all of the main leaders of each of the different departments, right? Whether that's business, sales, IT, software engineering is a big one for my space. Making sure that I have a close relationship with all of those leaders, because as I'm, convincing the board that we need different kinds of funding, it's also important to get that buy-in from each of those leaders, so that way the program as a whole kind of comes back to the business risk and the business buying into the things you want to do.
Thank you. I concede the floor.
Thank you.
Hello. My question's for Colin. I left my keys in my car.
What kind of key is it?
No. So I'm a vendor, but I have questions about, I talked to a lot of my customers about COVID life, what that's been like, and going back to the office. Just interested to hear the panel's thoughts on remote work compared to being in the office, if productivity is changing, if they're in good or bad being in remote rather as in the office, or teamwork and all that stuff. Interested to hear just thoughts on the panel and on that.
There's nothing that cheers me up like a long drive in traffic to work. That's the tone for my day just right.
This topic has so many, elements to it, right? I'll start in a positive. What's the great part of remote work? I live where I want to live, right? And luckily for a company that, helped support that. What are the challenges in remote work? I think when it started, we thought, well, we'll be back in the office in 3 months. So how thoughtful do we need to be about our security posture in securing our remote workforce in an office versus predominantly out of an office? Well, that's basically changed forever, right? And so there's some considerations there to make from a remote work perspective. I met with a fairly large group of security leaders lately, and if you're a vendor, I think you said if you're in the VDI market, life's probably going to get really good here in the next couple years, because a lot of people are talking about how do you secure that remote workforce, out in the future. For collaboration, I think honestly you're kidding yourself if you think you collaborate as well from home as you do in person in the office. Even the most introverted, I don't want to see another human being. I'm sorry, humans are social animals. At some point, go talk to someone in solitary confinement, they're not real happy. You're going to have some in-person collaboration, and that doesn't mean every day. But I think that finding a balance to your teams as to what works and finding other ways to have social interactions that aren't purely just work-related are key to some balance in that remote work, life.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that too, that we did a survey at 3M to kind of assess people's satisfaction levels with working from home. And we found it interesting that, I mean, people who had a family at home, typically their satisfaction rate was higher and they were more interested in staying at home. I'm sure that doesn't speak to everybody, right? If you have little kids, that might be a little harder. But those who were single, and living without kids or a spouse, right, and just living on their own, that satisfaction rate was far lower, and it kind of opened our eyes to the fact that and for all of us, I think Mark's right that we're humans. There's some element that where we want to socialize, we need to be around people, and we have to be mindful of that, right? Just because some employees, maybe it works well for them to work from home, but that may not apply to everybody. I do like the idea that, because I think we're probably going to have some level of remote regardless. I mean, we're international, and I have employees in England and in Dublin. I'm not going to be able to see them on a daily basis regardless, even if COVID's not there. That's not going to happen. But we do need to figure out some ways to connect, and whether it's events like this or just opportunities to sometimes just unwind, get on video conference and just chat about life and family, and just make sure that we have constant moments where we're connecting as humans instead of feeling like this work machine.
I like that you brought up it's not just about work. You connect to them as humans, not just as coworkers.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
So my question is asking for advice on dealing with. My question is advice on dealing with imposter syndrome and getting on the elevator to move to a next stage in my career.
All right.
I was thinking about this one all last night because I knew this question was going to come. I'm probably going to soapbox for just a minute here. First, please do your research. If you're thinking about imposter syndrome, you should look back to how that all came about. So for those of you who don't know, Suzanne Imes and Pauline Clance are the people who discovered this. And they didn't call it imposter syndrome. And what they say about it is they wish people wouldn't call it imposter syndrome. This is not a disability, but it is something that you will really feel and that you can really go through. It's an experience. They call it a phenomenon. So please understand, you're not broken, you're normal. And you should also understand that imposter syndrome is different than self-doubt. Imposter syndrome is the inability to internalize your success. When someone tells you you did a great job and you discount that because I was just lucky or people haven't figured it out yet, those kinds of things. You should certainly deal with the self-doubt, but from an imposter perspective, once again, please get yourself a mentor. Find someone you can trust who can be that outside advisor to say, no, you really did do a good job on this thing. And someone who can say, no, you really didn't do a good job on this thing and you need to do better. Someone who can give you that balanced feedback. I also think that it's very important that you understand that that feedback needs to be able to be used for your ongoing success, understanding that you will need to change. And when we're talking about hacking the elevator to get up there, you're going to have to put yourself out there. You're going to have to say, I might fail, and that's okay. Make sure you have the right kind of support system around you. If you feel like you're alone in going to move forward on your career, that's not okay. You should have someone who cares about your career, maybe not as much as you do, but a lot. If that person can be your manager at your current job, that's probably the best scenario.
I have a comment or two to say about that. So one of the things that kind of helped me, I still have it or whatever, even right now, but signing up for talks at like SAINTCON and local cons were one thing that helped me. And another thing that just came to my mind was we had a engineer on our team, and when we were interviewing him, he interviewed really well because we said, hey, we want to talk about networking, kind of get in the technical part. And he's like, can you tell us about IP subnetting? He's like, yeah. And what he did was he said, I can do like CIDR notation and stuff like this. But then he said, but I can't do IPv6 subnetting in my head, sort of a thing. Like, so he'll acknowledge his weaknesses or his strengths right up front and not try to like fake it till you make it. He'll just say like, I don't know that, and this is why, but I do know this part of it, or I'm learning this, or at home I'm doing a course on that or something. It's kind of nice because then they're just up front and like shields down and yeah, put yourself out there.
Acknowledge, don't focus on.
Yeah, I love that. And if you go back to the paper that they wrote, at that time, I mean, they were graduate students, and they were looking around and noticed that, they felt that they didn't deserve to be in that position, right? And then they started to realize that a lot of the other people who were in that same, school, at that, Ivy League school in a graduate program, they felt the same way. And that's where they started kind of pulling all that together. And some of the things that they recommended is to, be honest with yourself and really look at like the strengths that you have, because everybody in this room has amazing strengths. And I know, I mean, I deal with this too, right? I mean, I have a master's degree, lots of experience, but I'll still sit in a room in a meeting and I'll think, oh wait, do I have enough knowledge to actually give the opinion that's in my mind? But of course you do. Speak out, and likewise, be respectful of other people, right? Just, come to the realization that people around you are probably dealing with similar types of situations. No one wants to be put down. No one wants to feel like they're less than they are. So go out of your way to lift others up. And then I think mentorship, I love that concept, because coming back to a mentor too, you're gonna realize that they're also trying to figure this out, that you're not the only one. But definitely, take a good look at yourself and believe in yourself and look at those strengths.
Find someone that you work with, ask them what your superpower is. Ask them what you're great at. I think you'll be surprised at the amount of things that they could probably say about the things that you're great at that you don't even know.
Another thing I would say is, my wife and I talk about this a lot. A lot of imposter syndrome is because you compare your blooper reel to their highlight reel. I know everything I screwed up on last week. I don't know everything Seth screwed up on last week, but I see Seth give an awesome presentation. And I come back here and I'm like, man, I didn't give any awesome presentations last week. So make sure that if you're doing these comparisons, actually just don't do comparisons. That's the real answer. But when you do, make sure that you're comparing blooper for blooper and highlight for highlight, because it's really easy to get that I'm not good enough. And another thing I would say is find a hero and meet him. I can pick on him because he's not here, at least I don't see him. Troy is an awesome person, and he does a boatload for this con. A lot of people are like, ooh, Troy is the smartest InfoSec person. He's not. And he'll tell you that. I'm serious. Meet your hero and talk to him and realize that you are building these people up, and you are just as smart as a lot of these people, that you are like, man, I am just not in their class. And as you get to know them, it kind of is a reality check for you. Colin talked about go out and give presentations. Maybe you're not ready for a SAINTCON stage, so find your local hacker group or find a local special interest group and present there, a security interest group, present there to 5 or 10 people, and you'll get the feedback that Seth's talking about. A mentor is important too, but if you don't have a mentor, there are other places to get some of this feedback and some of this.
Even like lunch and learns, or like do a company brown bag, like, hey, let's talk about something that interests me. Like, even that's a great start.
We'll get, I just got to give one more probably again on this one. That self-doubt comment, I'll just give you one tool I've always used. There was a guy I went to high school with. Oh my gosh. Like, what a mess. He's a general surgeon now. And I always think, regardless of what's in my life, and I'll make up a name, if Bill is a general surgeon, like in that self-doubt, I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's a path to get to anything. And I shared that with my daughter the other day, who's 14, and we were a very remote place. I said, here, let's see you drive the car. I can't drive the car. I said, let me tell you about this guy, Bill, I went to high school with. Right? So, all good.
Well, they do.
So a little comparison is probably wrong, but I use that one quite a bit.
Doctors still call it a practice. Just.
Does that answer your question? Are you good with that?
Yeah. Mostly I see it all, the imposter syndrome coming a lot from my colleagues, and I'm like, it's really getting on the elevator was more of the question for me.
Yeah, and the bottom line is it's real, it happens to everyone, and it's how do you deal with it and how do you use it to drive you forward, because that uncertainty is hunger for improvement and growth, honestly. And so recognize that it's, like Seth said, it's not a sign of being broken, but it's drive to an opportunity to improve. And use the tool correctly and balance it with your mental health as needed. Thank you. That was a great question.
What if I'm Bill and I can't find my path? No, my real question is,
Luckily, his dad was also a doctor, so I think he got some. I think he had a tutor. That's how I'm guessing it happened.
Mentor. There you go. He had a mentor.
Mentorship.
that mentorship actually brings me into my real question. So I mentor a lot of students trying to get into cybersecurity. And in the past, I've always told them that they needed to socially engineer themselves a job, right? They need to make the connections and do the work to, present in an interview or something. But over the past 2 years, things have changed and it's harder to make those connections. Aside from cold connecting on LinkedIn, how do you guys, or how would you suggest, making connections and meeting new people to get, because I've had a hard time getting through HR filters, but whenever I talk to somebody in the company, I tend to do pretty well and secure jobs that way. It's harder to do that nowadays with less meetups and in-person events. Everything seems to be on LinkedIn right now.
LinkedIn's, yeah, it is, but there's a tactic of LinkedIn, unless you're looking for Seth. If you're looking for anybody else, looking for alumni that are in the field that you're looking for and out of a school that you're going to, even if they're not local or not, there's very rarely someone that when you give an intro like, hey, I saw you went to University of Utah or UVSC or BYU or whatever, I'm getting ready to graduate. Again, there's very few people that won't respond to that, even on a LinkedIn cold call.
So my last job in school, I needed like a half a year or 2 semesters or something between my internship and when I was going to graduate. And I wanted to work security. I had done a software engineering internship. I had software engineering experience, but I didn't have any security experience at that point at all. And so I wanted to do anything in the InfoSec field. So I was in Logan, so I don't know if anybody's familiar with SDL. It's a big company up there, nonprofit that does stuff for the government. And I was like, they might have security jobs. Maybe. I didn't see any listings. And I know they'd previously posted some security positions at some point or other. And so I was like, okay, who do I know that works there? Nobody personally. Great. So I emailed one of my professors who I knew had worked there, and he taught part-time, and asked him if he knew anybody that worked there that was looking for people in security. And so he sent me some contact information. I called the guy, told him my interests, and I had a job. So even if you don't know somebody super well at a company or just have a tiny connection, you can ask them to give you a reference to somebody else, and just kind of work that way.
Can I do a quick success and failure? I wouldn't say social engineer your way into it. So I worked at a large religious nonprofit based in Salt Lake, do the math. And I wanted to get over on the red team, and I saw the hiring manager because I was an employee, and I was like, I wanted to apply for that. So I just threw him an email and said, hey, I'd like to go over some resumes. Can I meet sometime? He's like, yeah, throw a half an hour on my calendar. We'll come talk. And I started talking. I showed him my resume, and I started talking and everything. He's like, you're not from HR going over resumes? He's like, no, I'm actually interested. He's like, okay, well, you got 27 minutes. What do you know? And that didn't work out so well. It's like, cool, that's fun. But then a success story, I applied at my current company, Pluralsight, and I was like, I wonder who's on the security team there. So I looked them up, and I call this OSINT because I was looking up people who worked there and did security and everything. And it's like, hey, maybe they'll be at this Hack West conference that we're going to be at. So Hallway Con networking is a good way, but I knew what they looked like, and I bumped into them. That's a more subtle social engineer, and it worked, I guess, because they hired me. But yeah. Anyway.
So you would suggest using a tool like the Harvester to?
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome.
I would just add to part of your question talked about groups that are harder to get going and harder with COVID. Don't be afraid to start your own group. As I sit here, I see several DC 435 hats, 2 of them up here. Honestly, it didn't exist 2 years ago. James Pope moved to Logan, and he said, hey, I want to do that. And it was me and James and his brother John and one other person sitting there and said, hey, let's do this. And then we said, okay, here are 4 other people I know that would be interested. And we got 6 or 7 of us together at Pope Tech, and we sat down, at the AV company. We sat down and we mapped out when do we want to meet, what do we want to do, and we made a plan, and we got it going. And it took like 3 weeks to go from an idea to we're meeting next week. And don't be afraid to start your own if there's not a small group around you. Like it is doable. It doesn't take financial resources. It does take a few connections, and you need to put in some work, but it's doable for you to put in a small group around you.
Have you met someone new while you're here? And not just for you, everybody here, right? If you want to do networking, just look in this room and think for just a moment about the opportunities and security talent that we have in this room. There's likely someone who could be a mentor or the avenue to your next job.
If I can tell a story about that, who in here? Everybody, I'm going to out him because he's not in here. Kevin Howard. He was he's a few years behind me in the career. When we first went to SAINTCON, like in 2011, they put him on the committee, and I was like, why'd they put him there? He's like 2 years younger than me. He's like 2 years less experienced than me. Why Kevin? And at first I was pissed, and I decided instead of being pissed, I would talk to him. And when I decided to pivot my career 15 years later, Kevin is who went to his boss and said, hey, make a job for this guy. We don't have one, but open one. Find the guy next to you. You never know when it's going to pay off or how it's going to pay off. But find people. It was a SAINTCON connection that got me where I am today.
Once again, I'm hiring. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, if you want an entry
Talk
to
to
the
me.
elevator, Sherrie is here. She will hold the door for you.
Hers is the fast elevator. It's a good one to be on. The great glass elevator.
Okay, this hopefully is a well-formed question, been thinking about it. For those of us looking at the career elevator and seeing it go through the management track, how do you navigate that, especially if we're not terribly interested in it? Just context, the last year I've been working a job has turned into a paper job where I'm dealing with reports and policy and people, and I haven't touched a compiler or an IDE in 11 months. And so it's been less fulfilling than I thought it would be. How do we navigate? What are your thoughts on navigating that?
Are you saying how do you maintain technical skills in management, or how do you avoid management and stay technical, or both?
Maybe if you could talk on both, but more the latter than the former.
Here, I can touch on the first one, right? So, I mean, I've been in management since I was 19, right? I mean, did a lot of messing around before that, and so this is something I've constantly been trying to add in over and over again because I love being a part of engineering. That's kind of at the core of who I am. So I created my own pen testing company, right? I was in a management position, and I thought, like, I don't get to do pen testing like I wish I could do. I don't get to get in the weeds anymore. So I just created my own company on the side, and I started doing pen testing. And little by little, I started picking up some big clients, and that was my way of going from nonstop meetings all day, and then at night and on weekends, I'd get to do some pen testing engagements and dive in and have some fun.
I would say you need to decide what you want. Right, and I would say that leadership and management is a different skill and a different career track in general for most people. Not all people who are great technical people are great leaders, and not all people who are great leaders are great technical people. If you get someone who can do both, they tend to be highly valuable, like Sherrie. I mean, I'm sure that her company really values that she has that capacity. She had a talk yesterday where she was diving incredibly deep into something, so that's a benefit that could be there for you. And I would also say if you've been a paper pusher for 11 months, can you change that? Who says that you have to do it that way? If you're a leader in your company, are you empowered to make that kind of a change? It's possible that you can make something different for you and maybe for others to make that better.
Do you have any follow-up questions you want to?
No.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Hey guys, I am currently a grave shift employee, so I don't get a lot of interaction with people. I also work for Troy and UEN, so our day shift does a really great job of making me not have anything to do at night. So my question to you is, I'd kind of like to find IT position that's not sales or like customer phone service that has a lot of people interaction, because I'm a people person and I like that, and that's kind of what I'm looking at, going on, like maybe education or something like that. What kind of positions would you think of as being really good for somebody who likes a lot of people interaction? And how to get into those?
People interaction. I mean, I can think of a few things. I think one is aligning them to your interest, right? And so part of that is, you say, well, I don't want to be in sales. I know there's a lot of great solution engineers that once sales has completed their work, they come out in a customer success relationship, and that's all they do is work with the client to be successful with their customer in implementing the technology, whatever it may be, from that perspective. I think also looking at, companies like Seth mentioned, he's a advisor with AWS. I mean, look at company values. They serve on customer obsession as like a core value, right? So someone that is looking for a customer. I mean, I can relate to you. When I was going through school, I hit a point and I was signed up for a ton of computer science classes. And I said, man, I really wish there was something that had more people interaction, maybe like a cross between like business and computer science. And someone's like, you mean information systems? Oh, what's that? And then I changed my whole schedule because I didn't want to be just tucked away without that human interaction. Assurance work, it's technical and IT, so IT auditors, compliance, it's not the hands-on delivery side, but it gets you close to technology, and it's all people interaction, right? So a few ideas.
Yeah, I mean, security positions, a large number of them actually deal with just working with people, right? I mean, I have engineering positions where they, vulnerability management engineers, where, yes, they're running some tools and they're doing scans, but a lot of their work is just communicating with managers and developers and helping them understand why that's a vulnerability, what that looks like, and it's just communication. And then you look at all the other types of positions like compliance, risk. Risk involves a lot of people skills. So being able to combine those two is very valuable. Privacy is another field that we often forget about when we talk about security, but it's all about protecting people's privacy. So it's very people driven. So having interests in that it partners beautifully with cybersecurity. It really does.
I would say get involved here with people before the conference ends. Ask them about their job and how much they interact with people. Matt was talking about some of the groups that you can join as a community effort. Talk with people about their interactions with people and see if you can find the job that fits you the best. If you can find someone who does that, you can find probably a great in for your next job and a mentor at the same time.
Thank you.
Hi, just a question about from a managerial, like a team lead or employer or any of the like. What kind of things would you look for in a future employee or in a promotion for a current employee?
To be a manager or
just
as an
just
individual
to be part of the
contributor?
team. To be part of the team or
Okay.
or to be employed.
Yeah, motivation.
Passion.
Yeah, yeah, passion, definitely. I mean, I look to that, and I'll even tell, I'll bring in my engineers when we're interviewing somebody, and one of the things I'll tell them is, and they know this just because they know the culture of our team, right? That what we want in a person, that we bring on board is someone who's very motivated. Right? I mean, I can teach you technology. I can teach you technical things. As long as you're motivated and you have a strong desire to learn, I can teach you that. But it's really hard to ingrain in somebody, motivation and desire and passion. Those are things that, I can't give you that. You have to come with that to me.
You hear a lot, but I mean, it goes off that hungry, humble, and smart attributes. I mean, they kind of touch to each of those. So if one of those gets out of balance, that's not a good fit. If you want to read about this in a narrative, read a book called The Ideal Team Player, right? And it also wraps around, so like that hungry is that motivation, humble. Maybe you've also heard that is like no brilliant jerks. No one will be on my team that's a jerk or is not going to be collaborative, and then that hungry and that motivation, right? And so I often will say when we're looking at someone is like, they don't have to have it, but do they have an aptitude to learn it, right? And then we can teach it and we can go forward.
And I would say if you're looking for a promotion, if you can, and I would encourage you to find out if you can, because it will say a lot about the organization you work for, talk with your manager about what it looks like to get promoted. What do you need to do to get there, and set some goals together. If you can get your manager on board with those goals and helping you to create those goals, then your likelihood for success in that promotion coming forward is probably significantly higher.
I'm going to follow this up with a question for Seth Manesse. I'm going to put you on the spot. What did you do?
Which one?
Yeah. What did you do to highlight this in your experience recently applying for a job?
Yeah. So extracurricular things. If you're just graduating college and you're looking to get noticed by employers, the last thing that's going to get you noticed is stuff everybody else has done in college. You need other things. So Matt noticed me potentially because I tried to stalk him at the local DEF CON group that he was talking about earlier. I don't think you even knew that. Like, I went to try and find you because you're the hiring manager for the job that I was applying for.
Well played.
And I knew and I got the job because I could talk to him about it in my interview. Also, I did competitions in college relating to fields that I was interested in. B-Sides had an application security competition or something that I did very well with, and there was a Cyberforce competition put on by the Department of Energy that I participated in for a couple of years and did well with those. And so being able to list, okay, I did these things in addition to just my normal college work is super helpful.
And when you graduated, did you start at the bottom of the totem pole?
No.
So it works.
It does.
Just one quick caveat to that. There is a difference between extracurricular activities and extracurricular activities that are relevant. If you have on your resume for a cybersecurity job that you're a beekeeper, that's not really helpful. I don't know what you think, but it's not helpful to me. If you say I'm engaged in my local DC 435 or 801 group, that's relevant, right? So understanding, and there probably could be like a million things said about resumes or the approach, but understand that hiring managers are often very busy. You want to be able to present to them the what's in it for them as quickly as you can. If you can find the kinds of things extracurricular, I'm working with open source, I'm working with my community, I did this special project in school, and you can share that, that will be very helpful, just like you said.
I have bees.
Yeah, tell me that you used an Arduino to monitor like the activity of your bees and the amount of honey that they're making. Yeah, then let's talk.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we're running low on time, so we'll get this one in, and then John, do you have one too?
We're going to have one last question, but I encourage you to come up to them after they are done. You can probably find them after they're done and interact with them then.
Okay, I guess the pared down version of my question is the first half of my technical career was in like field work. And then for various quality of life reasons, I started looking for something else. What is your advice to older people about how to make previous incarnations a little more relative or relevant rather when they're applying for things?
Can you clarify what you mean by field work?
I worked in oil field telemetry and hardware.
Okay.
And it was pretty intense, and I got into cybersecurity while recovering from a workplace injury. I'll put it that way. But yeah, as someone going for a career change at exactly double the drinking age, what's your advice?
I can say that the answer that Seth gave just a minute ago directly applies. Show that the way I often say this is show that you care about this by the time you put in. If you are passionate about cybersecurity, it's not I took a class on cybersecurity. It's I took my own time, my own money, my own initiative, my own resources, and at home I built this lab to learn how to run Suricata. I wanted to learn more about red teaming, and so I've been working on Hack in the Box, or I've been working on whatever the challenge is that you're doing, show things that you're doing. I think that the career pivot is very similar to the college transition of a new person, but I'd defer to others for more comments on that. But
I would say, unless you can show relevant translatable skills, you might be starting back in that area that Matt's talking about. But I would also encourage you to take a look at the job that you want and try and figure out, how do the things that I've done in the past plug into that, right? If you've been out in oil fields working with radio technology, you probably had to do some sort of encryption back and forth on those kinds of things. Dig into that a little deeper and find a way to make it relevant if you can.
that's good.
Even general skills help, like meeting deadlines and project managing and stuff like that. It translates all over.
Okay, well, we appreciate your time here. I hope this has been helpful to some. I really personally appreciate everyone's willingness to come up here with me. This idea was pitched, and I love the idea, and so let's make it happen. I thought everyone did fantastic. Thanks, Colin, all the way across the board, Seth and Sherrie and Mike. Thanks for coming up here. We appreciate it. Thank you for your help, and thank you, everyone, for attending. We appreciate you being here and asking your questions. Like John said, don't hesitate to come up and ask us and talk to us more.
Thank you.